welcome everybody. Thank you for braving the snow today. I'm Eric Archer and I'm the Executive Director here at Cape Ann Television. And Cape Ann Television has always been about community partnerships, whether through our organizational memberships or our event coverage or helping organizations understand how to utilize video to promote their services. And more recently, we've been getting involved with grant partnerships. So what we've been doing is encouraging organizations that are writing grants or considering writing grants to think about writing in a video element to that grant. And the value that we can bring to the table, and the reason why we're encouraging organizations to do that, is because we can match any funds requested in-kind services, so personnel, equipment, facilities, things like that, and help you make a stronger proposal, which is helpful. And then at the end of the day, you wind up with this video that promotes your project. And we obviously, as a nonprofit here in your community, have the best rates in town. So we're excited about that, and we're encouraging organizations to do that. And Dave and Julie, certainly if you want to encourage organizations to think about that, that would be very helpful. We have one coming up that we're very excited about. I was hoping to be able to share the details of that with you here today, but we're not quite there yet, but we're very excited, and hopefully I can follow up with that information soon. When I read about the Essex County Community Foundation's Impact Essex County project, I thought it was a great opportunity to organize our community partners and to utilize our production services to help spread the word, because the ECCF's mission and values are certainly very much aligned with our own, so it's nice to be able to do that. And our speaker here today, our speakers, are Dave Edwards, the President and CEO of the ECCF, and Julie Bishop, the VP of Philanthropy. And they'll be talking about Impact Essex County, a very exciting, ambitious project. And so I will turn it over to Dave, and at the end we will have some time for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks everybody for coming out today on this beautiful winter's day, and we appreciate taking time to come out and talk. We want to talk a little bit about a project that's really exciting, Impact Essex County. And before we do that, I'd like to just talk a little bit, because some people don't really know what a community foundation is. I was just talking to Paul. There are 770 community foundations across the country managing billions of dollars of assets and making grants back to their local community. And probably the fastest growing form of philanthropy in the nation, and most of the community foundations, I had the pleasure of working with about 40 community foundations across the country before becoming president in a consulting capacity, and many of them are doing some really exciting work in their communities around a community leadership agenda, which we want to talk about today. So quickly, what is the Essex County Community Foundation? And we are an 18-year-old grant-making foundation serving Essex County, the 34 cities and towns that make up this place. Last year we granted over $4 million, and since our inception we've granted to local and regional nonprofits over $30 million in grants. We manage 171 different charitable funds that have been set up by local people who care passionately about the place that they live, and we currently have assets totaling just about $38 million. And our new strategic plan, we'd like to reach $100 million by the year 2020 so that we could make even more grants back to the local nonprofit community. Our mission is pretty straightforward. It's to strengthen the communities of Essex County. We do this by promoting philanthropy and managing charitable assets, making grants, and engaging in strategic community leadership. We have an exciting new vision, and that is to have 34 thriving cities and towns that have the following: successful schools, safe, clean, green, and vibrant neighborhoods, economic and job opportunities for everybody, access to the arts, culture, and entertainment, and healthy residents. In short, we want to make Essex County the best place to live, work, raise a family, and recreate as well. It's already a great place. We want to make it better. There's clearly a lot of diversity in those 34 cities and towns. We cover from Lynn to Lawrence to Newburyport to Gloucester. So we have a pretty big area, about 500 square miles, 770,000 residents that we serve. And we would like to have every one of those 34 cities and towns look like that. It's a big agenda, but that's what our vision is. So what is Impact Essex County? This is ECCF's community leadership project that we will be working on for the next 3 to 5 years. It has been approved by the board in our new strategic plan. It's ambitious, but we think it's doable. It's a 3-phase, multi-year collaborative initiative designed really to identify and move the needle on some of the key challenges that are facing this county. The 3 phases are first, and we want to talk mostly about the first phase because we're just launching this project. And this has a lot of support from the business community and the government community. Actually, Seth Moulton, our new representative, came to us and said, I want to know more about the Essex County Community Foundation. I said, we have a board meeting coming up, a board retreat in April. It starts early. He said, what time? I said, it starts at 9. He said, I'll be there at 8 because I want to learn more about what you're doing. Over the course of time, he has come to really realize the importance of gathering data and information about Essex County. He asked us to convene the local chambers of commerce and business leaders to talk about this a couple weeks ago. And so Seth was really interested in gathering data. As he said at this convening that we had 2 weeks ago with the chamber heads, I'm in Washington, and I think data is really important. Unfortunately, most people in Washington don't make decisions based on data. It's an unfortunate situation, but the first phase is assessing the state of Essex County, and Julie's going to talk more about our Community Indicators project that we're launching. After we gather this data, a comprehensive set of data that's going to really look at a lot of the quality of life features in Essex County, we want to identify what the needs are and figure out where to go next in this project. And we've formed a community advisory council that's going to help us look at the data and then identify the needs. And then we want to move the needle on what some of the key issues. And the most exciting and I think challenging part of this project is our board's committed, once we identify what the needs are, to raise $10 million to help address the critical issues that face the county. And we hope to have some really interesting results. So Julie, do you want to start talking about the Community Indicators project? And I'd be happy to help you afterwards with any questions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Can you see me above?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you for having us up here again on this snowy day and helping us to let the community know about what we're trying to achieve here through this Community Indicators project and Community Leadership project. I've been with the Community Foundation for almost 10 years and seen most of their grant making during that time. And as a grant maker, I'm continually frustrated by the lack of data. We have wonderful projects, as one of my fellow funders said. We fund things that come over the bow of the boat, but we never know, are those the key things that we should be funding? So we fund hunger projects, we fund summer programs, we fund after-school programs, but what's going to move the needle and really make a difference in our communities? I use the example of our hunger project in 2009 when we were faced with the recession. The board came to me and said, we want to make sure that no one is going to be hungry in Essex County during this time. So I said, sure, we'll work on that next Thursday, which was a difficult project, but the food pantries across the county were wonderful. We worked with the networks, we created a website for them. We've helped them with their annual food drive, with the U.S. Letter Carriers Food Drive. We've provided grants to them. But at the end of the day, I always ask myself, is hunger really what we should have been addressing? Is hunger just a symptom of a bigger problem? And we didn't have the data to really know. Is it really that people can't afford their rents around here, that affordable housing is a problem in Essex County, and because people are spending so much of their money on housing, they don't have money left over, so they have to turn to food pantries to get free food? Or is it education problems? Is it unemployment? We didn't have the data to really look at it. The other thing that's challenging about Essex County, as Dave kind of referred to, we have such a variety. We have great wealth, we have cities, we have 10 cities, some of them with some real poverty issues facing them. We have immigration as well in some of those cities that we need to address through education and job training and those kinds of programs. So all of that led us to really want to look at some data across the county. And this project, we're hoping to answer the questions of what are the key challenges, issues, and trends that are affecting Essex County? How do we compare to other counties across the state? How do we compare to the state average, national averages? And other counties, we're going to try and find some other counties that look like Essex County somewhere in the country, whether it's a county outside of Chicago or San Francisco or Washington or some major city that has some of our characteristics. And how do we look against those counties? And at the end of the day, with this data that we collect, which will be measurable data, we can look at it every couple years and see, are we making any difference in these projects that we try and tackle? So this summer we spent a considerable amount of time doing research with community foundations from across the country who have done these kind of projects, interviewing them, finding out how they went about it, finding out what their results were. Those that some of them had projects like the Boston Foundation started their project, their Indicators project in the year 2000. The Rochester Area Community Foundation started theirs in 2009, and some of them have some very interesting results because of the information, the data that they were able to collect. What we're looking to do is to provide reliable, measurable data on the quality of life indicators and publish an interactive website that is available to the entire community so that anyone can use it, whether it's nonprofit, business leaders, government leaders, somebody just interested in moving to the area to look at what Essex County looks like in terms of indicators. We'll be collecting 75 to 100 different indicators, and again, coming up with an interactive website. We're going to divide the county up somewhat, and we're still talking about how it's going to look. At this point, we're thinking we're going to segregate data out for Lynn, Lawrence, and North Shore, Cape Ann, and the Merrimack Valley, so we can kind of compare the different parts of the county, because as we all know, every section of this county is a little bit different. The process that we're going to use, we're gathering right now, we're gathering a community advisory council that will be a group of people, around 20 people from across the county, leaders in education and health, in arts and culture, in business, people that are running agencies that deal with poverty issues, to help advise the project, both looking at the indicators that we're looking, the broad topics that we're going to look at. So our Community Advisory Committee will help us decide which areas that we're going to look at that we think are the most important. Is it education? Is it health? Is it public safety? What are the broad areas we want to look at? Then we're going to gather small groups of experts around each of those topics that will work with the firm that we've contracted with to pick the actual data points that we're going to be looking at. These are going to be measurable data that are available statewide and nationally, so that we're going to be able to compare them to other parts of the country and also be able to continue to go back and see the trends over time. We did a lot of work also this summer to interview various firms that are involved in this kind of business, that can do the research, that can do the data collection, that understand the indicators that provide the best results. And we've contracted with a firm out of Rochester, New York, called the Center for Government Research. And they're a nonprofit. They've been around for 100 years. And they have done, I think, about 8 of these projects across the country. So I wanted to show you what one looked like. This is a project of the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. Gulf Coast is around the Sarasota, Venice area of Florida. It involves 4 different counties. They launched this project, I think, in 2014 through the Community Foundation. It's a standalone website like ours will be. Ours will have a Essex County feel to it, Essex County pictures, Essex County people. We'll be looking at those, we'll be coming up with these topics across the top with our Community Advisory Committee. And then once we're have those, then we'll be working with the firm to come up with the indicators under them. Under Sarasota, they're looking at some demographic changes, some unemployment, some high school graduation, some of their key indicators. And again, they used 75 to 100 different. Some we will use, some we won't. It'll depend on what makes sense for us. I think they have some that have to do with beaches, which we may or may not need. Again, it'll be up to the groups that we gather to help us decide what those are. But if I look under some of these, so each of these, this is their list of indicators. If you go under the indicators themselves, the website will provide some analysis that the research firm will do for us, looking at how our region's doing, looking at why this is an important data point, helping to compare, how's the trend been over the last 10 years? Are we going up with percentage of high-tech jobs? Are we going down? How do we compare it to other places in the country? And this will then be displayed on some charts that, oops, let me pull that down for you just so you can see it a little bit better. And in this particular one across the bottom, you can see where they compare by counties. That's where we'll be comparing by different sections of our county, the North Shore, the Merrimack Valley, Cape Ann, et cetera. And we can look across the various years, and this the line across the top is the U.S. average. So you can see that their high-tech jobs are a little under the U.S. Average. We can look, and then they also show the actual data itself, so that depending on how people like to look at it, they spread the chart out. So that's an example of the kind of website we hope to develop over time, as this one is a fairly new project. As we look at other ones as they get along, they attach reports, they attach blogs, other things that are coming out in the community can be attached to it. People can receive emails based on it. All of that will be in this website and available. So we anticipate the website, we're kicking it off in the next few weeks, depending on snow, because our research leader is coming down from Rochester, and some of our meetings are next week during snowstorms, so we'll see. But our anticipated timeline is that the website will be finished up sometime this summer, and we'll have a public launch in September that the community will be invited to attend to see the website. And at that point, once the data is here, our CGR will come back and they'll help us bring our community advisory committee together and our board and really look at what does this data now tell us. They'll do a regional overview to look at what the trends are again, and what they see is what some of this data is telling us. And then we'll bring in other funders, we'll bring in our nonprofits, we'll bring in some of our government leaders to look at what are some of these key issues that are going to be affecting us. And then how do we begin to convene around those? Some of the ones that have been interesting are Rochester, New York's. I mentioned that the Rochester Community Foundation started theirs along with the United Way. It was a joint project around the city of Rochester, which used to be quite a thriving city back when I grew up in upstate New York, with Xerox and Bausch & Lomb and Kodak. It's changed. A lot of those industries have left, and the city itself didn't realize the poverty that was facing that city, that they were indeed the 5th poorest city in the country and the 2nd poorest in terms of their population. They delved a little deeper. They saw that there was some significant racial disparities in their poverty rates. They commissioned some studies, and they've updated the study every 2 years. They're working really hard at the Community Foundation level, at the United Way level, to address some of these areas and to look specifically at education in the city schools. So that's the kind of projects that we see coming out of this, where we can all work together. The other thing is looking at the cross-section of data, which somewhat they've done here. The other one that's interesting is Miami. They have a report called Our Miami, and some of the things that came out of that report and the stories that came out of that report were because they have a declining, because of the rising sea level, which is rising sea level, they have less open space than they had, and they compared themselves to San Diego and Chicago and New York, and found out that they have less open space, less public park space than New York does and Chicago does. And that's affecting tourism, it's affecting the health of their children, not to have open space to go out and play in. They also, through this study, realized that, they were spending less on parks than New York was and Chicago was. So they have a big effort now to develop, the community foundation's leading an effort to develop more public park space for the citizens of Miami, both to help their tourism and to help their families as well. So that's the kind of thing that can come out of that. Other project from them was that they found that their citizen participation rate in volunteerism was down. And part of why it was so down is that housing is so expensive that so many people have to live outside the city and their traffic is horrendous, and people don't want to go out and volunteer in the city at night when they've just gotten home. So all of these things are interesting cross-sections of data, and they're based on data. So that's the kind of things that we're trying, hoping that we're going to find out from them. And as we hopefully we gather people, gather other funders, we don't expect that we can solve all the issues, but perhaps some of our funders who are partnering in this project, by the way, and have financially supported it, will be able to address some of the others where we may be able to focus on one or two. Some of our other funders may be able to focus on others, gather our nonprofit leaders that are doing the work in the community, and also work with some of our state and local government officials and businesses to help as well. So then we come to phase 3, which is how are we going to move the needle on all of this? And I think Dave was going to talk a bit about our plans to raise some financial support to get behind some of these projects.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, this is, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, this is the most exciting and most challenging piece is, do we have the ability to really to do what I would describe as collective impact? The nonprofit community, quite frankly, can be very idealistic and think that they alone can solve all of the societal problems facing this county. And the reality is, studies have shown it's really when you bring business leaders, government leaders, and the nonprofit sector together at the table, agree on what the measures are, and that way you can make a collective impact and really do make some significant societal change. Our role at the Community Foundation will be the convener. We want to bring these groups together, and we want to be the funder. We want to have access to up to $10 million to be able to address whatever those key issues are. And our board's committed to do that. The resources are here in Essex County. There are many, many high net worth individuals, a lot of private foundations. The wealth is here to address it. It's just mobilizing and convening the people and convincing them that we can work together to make a significant impact in this county. That's perhaps why we call it Impact Essex County. So just summing up, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions about the project. How can you help? Share your ideas. Visit the website when it's up in September. Use the data. Connect us with funders and other people partners that might be interested in working with us on this. Attend community meetings and, quite frankly, support the project. Thanks to the generosity of a number of private foundations, our board, we've been able to raise over $120,000 towards this first phase of the project. We still need some more funding, but the board's confident that we'll get that. So I hope you can tell that we're really excited about this. We think it'll be something that a lot of people, we've talked to nonprofits, they're excited about having access to the data. It'll help them write grants. Private foundations who are focused on particular areas said this will provide information that we need. And I've talked to funders, actual individual donors who said, I'm tired of doing what they call transactional philanthropy, where I write the same $10,000 check to Harvard every year, and I'm not sure that Harvard really needs it. We love Harvard. My daughter went there, no offense, but we're really trying, our goal is to keep as many charitable dollars in Essex County as possible. And I talked to one donor specifically, said if you have more data for me, I can be a better grant maker individually. So there are many benefits for Impact Essex County, and I'll stop there because we have talked more than 20 minutes, I'm sure, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I got a question.
Sure.
Could you address the value of having a community foundation in a county, and that idea of investing in the county that you live in and work in?
Well, I drank the Kool-Aid on community philanthropy 15 years ago. I've been in the field since 1998. I spent 20 years in higher education, which was wonderful. But when I had the opportunity to move to San Luis Obispo County, my wife was offered the principalship of a charter school there, and I said, I want to go because it's a beautiful place to start with. And I went there, and they were starting a community foundation. They literally handed me a checkbook with $60,000 in it. That's all they had. And they said, we want to make this a $20 million foundation in the next 20 years so that we can give away $1 million in grants. 6.5 years later, we had $23 million, and we were the largest grant maker in San Luis Obispo County. The concept is really to give where you live. The value of having a community foundation that's focused really on Essex County and keeping philanthropic resources in this county is really what my job is and what I'm passionate about. 770 community foundations across the country, billions of dollars of assets, and really been able to make significant changes in their communities because of the resources that they have available. We're about to receive a multi-million dollar bequest from a person who lived in this county, loved the kids of this county, and those dollars will change kids' lives. Those dollars could have gone to any number of institutions across the country, across the world. Not that they wouldn't be used well, but if you live here, you should give here. We have an incredible quality of life in Essex County, and I just hope that we can keep as many philanthropic dollars here as possible. I hope I answered your question. Thanks. Yes, Paul.
Just understanding the order of things.
Mm-hmm.
The website is going to be up third quarter, fall.
Yeah.
And is the data gathering between now and then?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So when the website is displaying the data that's been gathered between now and then.
Correct. The advisory council will get those broad topics that we want to address across the top. The focus groups will then dig deeper and gather the indicators within each of those topical areas. And then basically CGR goes back and collects local data, statewide data, census, the data that they're really data aggregators and data nerds. They love getting lots of data from around the country, around the state, and help us do this. We could have never, we've had some people say, well, why don't you just have Julie do this? So the magnitude of that project, again, we could do, we'll fit that in on Thursday. We really needed professional help because to gather it and more importantly to analyze it, that's what takes a lot of time to say what are the trends and what's this data really mean. So,
And to understand the data that is the best data to use.
Right.
Right.
right. And yeah, and then the difficult part, there's no challenge, not difficult, there are challenges, but having the Community Advisory Council look at the data and say, what are the things that we can really move the needle on? There might be an issue that we simply can't address because there's not enough collective will to address it. And we might have to let some other groups do that. If we find that we have a major transportation issue in the county, it's hard to see the nonprofit and business sector moving the needle on transportation without the government involved because they're so heavily involved in that issue. We all know, and certainly the police chief here in Gloucester has been a leader in that there's an opioid problem in Essex County, as well as in the state of Massachusetts and across the country. Is that an issue that we can all come together on and help solve? There have been piecemeal attempts to do that. There's the issue around Narcan, but I'm not sure Narcan solves the problem of the opiate addiction issue. So there are many issues that we could address, but we want to get the ones that, again, that we can really measure and make a difference on.
I imagine that the aggregation of objective data about the counties is going to provide a certain kind of objectivity that hasn't been available before. How do you think it will transform the efficiency of making philanthropic donations?
That's a great question, Barry, really good question. The first part of it, I think, is the critical piece is because we've had some consultants say, and we've actually interviewed a firm say, sort of forget about the data. Just bring a bunch of people in the room, and they can pretty much tell you what the needs of the county are. And the board rejected that idea, saying we really think, and as Seth Moulton pointed out, start with the data because that will help drive your decision making. We'd love to be able to track, and that's why the trend analysis will be updating this every 2 years. If people are changing their philanthropic giving based on the data, that would be a success for us. It might be hard to measure because it's largely going to be correlational as opposed to, because of your website, I changed my grant making. But I know there are donors out there who have said, as I've pointed out, I will look at this and that will influence the way I make philanthropic decisions, either from my donor advised fund that we hold or from the checks that they write on an annual basis. What I really hope is that we can continue to get more planned gifts to the Community Foundation. The transfer of wealth in the next 20 years from one generation to the next is in the trillions of dollars. Even if you left 5% of your estate to the Essex County Community Foundation, that would be millions and millions of dollars that would be here forever, that would provide an ongoing source of grants to support nonprofits. And not that I don't want to see my children have part of my estate, but I want to make sure some of it goes to a community foundation so that it's here forever, helping the place that I live and love. Yes, please.
Yeah. What percentage of the data markers would relate to the infrastructure or the built environment of the county?
Infrastructure and environment.
Built environment as a measure of how effective the infrastructure and the built environment of this county is compared with Massachusetts as a whole?
Yeah, I can't answer that now. I think our Community Advisory Council will certainly have some measures. What percentage, that's really up to them to advise us how important it is. Essex County, 25% of Essex County is under some sort of conservation plan, either owned by the state or the county or by a town, which makes the quality of life here exceptional because that's a big chunk of the 501 square miles that we have. So those kinds of measures, and we want to watch those trends over time. Infrastructure measures, I'm not sure. We'd have to have the center help us with that as well as the council.
One more. I've always thought that, say this again. It seems like this aggregation of data is going to not only affect the efficiency of Essex County Community Foundation, but you are going to be providing an absolutely critical and effective way for all the nonprofits, particularly the major nonprofits that are working in the county, to make decisions about their philanthropic investment. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I'm hoping, as Julie pointed out, there will be issues that I think will be identified in the data that individuals or foundations or nonprofits will say, wow, we should do something about that because that's our expertise and we can do that and we can mobilize the resources. To the extent we can help convene that or fund it, that will be wonderful. But we don't have any desire to control every little project, obviously. And any group of nonprofits that wants to get together to address an issue would be wonderful to do. We did a similar project to this in San Luis Obispo when I was out there. I didn't drive it. It was started beforehand. Actually, in California, counties mean something. There's actually county government, and they fund the schools and the health systems extensively. But when we did the project, we found that the suicide rate in San Luis Obispo High School was higher than the state and national average. And when we looked, we said, there's something wrong here because this is a pretty nice community and pretty healthy kids and a wonderful place to live. Digging down a little deeper, we found that it was really a number of youth from the LGBT community committing suicide because they were being bullied. Now that was an easy project because we could convene the LGBT groups in San Luis Obispo County saying, look, you have a problem, stop focusing on your issues, help the kids in the schools. We could get a mentoring program in there very quickly to make sure that LGBT kids felt safe within the schools. And it was without that data, we probably would have not known that and not addressed a really critical issue. It would have been anecdotal, and why did the student commit suicide? Probably not even revealed about his or her gender identity. but we were able to, because of the data, able to address a really critical community issue that didn't require a whole lot of money, quite frankly, and we could turn over to a set of already established nonprofits that could help these kids. So that was just one example of something that data like this can help, and there's probably other, other examples that I'm not even thinking of. But so, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate Cape Ann TV for inviting us here today. Thanks, Eric.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much,
You're
Dave
welcome.
and Julie. It was really nice having you both. We appreciate you coming out. And it really seems like there's an opportunity for a follow-up presentation here. Once you guys get going, we'd love to have you back and
Absolutely.
hear how things are going. This is very interesting. And seeing how things change, I'm sure will have some dramatic impact on your grant making, so that'll be exciting to see. Thank you all for coming. There's food in the lobby. Please help yourselves. Get home safe.